This is a Fox News alert, a make or break day today for the race in the White House. Voting underway in 5 states, including the key states of Ohio and Florida, that could remake the race for both parties. This is Outnumbered. I'm Andrea Tanteros, and here with us today, Harris Faulkner, Sandra Smith, nationally syndicated radio talk show host and Fox News contributor Meghan McCain is back. And today's hashtag, one lucky guy. Who better than this guy? Fox News' chief political anchor and anchor of Special Report, one half of the dynamic duo that delivers our election results consistently. And revolts. And revolts, because there have been a lot of those too. Mr. Bret Baier, welcome.
Great to be here. Great to be here. You know, I tried to come a couple weeks ago, and my flight was delayed about 4 hours. So I'm happy to be on the couch after Brit Hume and Chris Wallace. Yeah. I mean, finally, I'm here.
You were getting a little jealous,
I
weren't
was
you?
getting jealous.
All right, well, the jealousy can end today.
All right.
That starts now. All right, and this starts now. A big election day as voters head to the polls in 5 key states today, where more delegates are up for grabs than almost any other day on the campaign calendar. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton looking to fend off rival Bernie Sanders as he appears to have narrowed the race in Illinois, Missouri, and even Ohio. Now, on the Republican side, it could be do or die for Marco Rubio and John Kasich, who are fighting for their political futures in their home states of Florida and Ohio, where it's winner take all. And this, as frontrunner Donald Trump is looking to deliver a knockout blow by running the table.
It's really something special. We're going to make our country so much better. It's going to be great again.
The price of failure is too high. If we lose this election, that means Hillary Clinton will be president.
I want to send a message to the country. Ohio should send a message to the country. Everybody's watching us now.
Quite the big day. So, Bret Baier, the polls have been a little inconsistent this election cycle. What are you going to be looking for tonight as key indicators, specifically in those critical states of Florida and Ohio? So, in all of the states so far, Donald Trump, even in the ones that he's doing really well in, has underperformed the polls going in. In other words, like 4, 5, 6 points less than the average of polls in those states. He still had huge wins, obviously, and racked up a ton of delegates. If that happens tonight, you wonder how that will translate. In Florida, it seems like he has the pad going in to get a big win there, but we'll see. And in Ohio, you know, it seemed like John Kasich was leading going in. If trend holds, Kasich could pull that out, and that would be a big deal as far as the math goes, because it's all about the math. It's all about getting to 1237, the delegates needed to clinch the nomination.
A big deal for Donald Trump, but not so much for John Kasich.
Right, well, potentially a big deal for John Kasich. He can't really get there to the magic number with the states left, but he can force it to a contested convention, at which point his hopes are on a second, third, fourth ballot.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting kind of the way you describe it, because what they're doing is they're keeping one candidate from actually getting to that count to give all of them oxygen. I've heard you put it that way before. It's almost playing to not lose.
True, because you're so behind in the delegate count at this point. So right now, if Donald Trump wins Ohio and Florida, and he likely wins North Carolina, Illinois, and Missouri in proportional sense.
Right.
He is going to have an easier time to get to 1237. He can get there, but he still needs to get roughly half of the delegates of the remaining states. It's like 6, 7, carry the naught, 27.
But if you take away Florida or Ohio, how much more difficult does it get?
It gets a lot more difficult if he loses both. If he loses one, he would have to run the table at about 63% of the remaining delegates of all the states. And it's possible for those other guys, namely Ted Cruz, to block him in those states.
But if Kasich wins tonight, is it more that it's a win for Kasich, or it's just a loss for Donald Trump? Like, that's the question right now, because there's no foreseeable pathway for Kasich.
That is a great question. You know, Kasich is pinning his hopes on getting to a convention in Cleveland, by the way, and making the case that he is the consensus pick. Now, you would have to convince the Trump people that...
And the Cruz people.
And the Cruz people that he is better than them. So you have this horse trading likely that would happen in Cleveland. Unlike anything we've ever seen before, if it gets to that point. Kasich has an 80% approval rating as governor in Ohio. That's really high.
It is really high.
And he has the machine of Ohio. So, you know, he's positioned to do well there.
Bret, how does that factor in, though? Because, again, he is the governor, a very popular governor of an important state, but outside of Ohio, Kasich hasn't translated. I mean, you see him not coming in #1 in any other state. So how strong does that make his argument, even going into the convention as somebody who's, you know, going to get the nomination and can unite the party?
That's a great point. He's 0 for 20. You know,
yeah.
He'll be 1 for 24.
That's a problem.
And that's a problem. And you have to make a case that you are the guy that can unite the party, but most of these states have not chosen you. So it's a great point. It is something that they are playing to Cleveland.
So, Bret, if we do see Donald Trump win Florida and Ohio tonight, which is not a stretch, and by some estimates it's likely, what does tomorrow look like?
Tomorrow looks like fewer candidates. You likely have, I would guess, some of the candidates getting out. John Kasich has said if he lost Ohio, he would get out of the race. Florida Senator Marco Rubio has not said that per se, but one would think that he doesn't have a path if he loses Florida. And then you have mano a mano.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, potentially.
So this morning, after voting in Westerville, I assume for himself, John Kasich.
I think so.
Westerville, Ohio, right?
I'm pretty sure.
He gave a news conference, and it was pretty lengthy. And it seemed like at that point he said, well, I'm going to respond to what I saw on Friday night in Chicago on my time, so on and so forth, but I can tell you right now, I'm paraphrasing him just a little bit, that he's taken issue with some of the things that his team has pulled quotes from Donald Trump. If he takes on Donald Trump one-on-one, we have seen, you mentioned that 0-20 that he's had in some parts of his life. It could be 0 and something else, because no one has gone up against Donald Trump and been able to walk away unscathed.
That's true. I mean, we've seen the people who have attacked him most vigorously really go down and eventually leave the race. Lindsey Graham, Jeb Bush, others. I think the going bet is that Trump gets this momentum and eventually gets to the magic number of 1237. But there could be a bumpy ride to get there.
The question a lot of us are holding out for, because there is one man that has beaten Donald Trump, and that's Ted Cruz. What argument can he continue to make tonight if he loses everywhere?
That he's the alternative. That if Trump is 35, 40%, there's 60% of the party that doesn't want Donald Trump. And Ted Cruz, could say, I'm the guy that can unify the 60% and also talk to the Trump supporters and say, I'm the realistic character.
Do you think he can make an argument to make Kasich get out?
Yes, if Kasich loses, he will. I think that's the pressure that he's putting on those other candidates. It's why he played in Florida. He opened 10 offices in Florida. I mean, he doesn't have a chance to win Florida, but Ted Cruz is polling in 3rd in the state of Florida, and he's causing Rubio a lot of trouble.
Bret, you mentioned unifying the party as a potential argument for Cruz. But there seems to be one word that the electorate that's most fired up cares about the most, and that's win. And that's why Donald Trump keeps saying win, we're going to win, win, win some more. Electability in a general for Ted Cruz. Big question mark over it. He doesn't seem to have that crossover appeal that arguably other candidates do have, like a Trump.
True. However, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls head-to-head against Hillary Clinton, Ted Cruz does better than Donald Trump right now. Now, Trump says, I haven't even started on Hillary Clinton. I haven't even begun. But as of today, Ted Cruz does better head-to-head than Donald Trump does. I think, you know, you're right, Cruz would have to change a little bit in his pitch to really go after the independents and go after the moderate Republicans.
But arguably so will Donald Trump or any of them. I mean, running in the primary has always been different for both parties than the general election. Right? Yeah,
Ted Cruz says, I'm always going to be the same guy. I'm always going to be, you know, stick to my principles. But to attract a different audience, he may talk about different things and put his focus on different things.
I'm looking forward to tonight, Bret, too, that Donald Trump has almost started his general election campaign sooner than, say, a Ted Cruz. Very quickly, we've got to go, Bret, but Marco Rubio, a lot of people writing his political obituary. If he doesn't win, thoughts on what that headline reads tomorrow?
If he doesn't win, listen, he is an accomplished politician. He is obviously great at communicating. And we've seen -1 New Hampshire debate. He's pretty good on a debate stage. So I could see him running for governor. I could see him doing a lot of things in politics.
He's so young, too. He's only 44.
Yeah, and he's, you know, he knows his stuff.
All right.